Okay, good morning, students. Today we'll start class 7 English, chapter 1, 3 questions. So, students, I'll read and explain to you. Okay, just listen carefully, all of you, those who are watching this video. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. These three things were: what is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? The king therefore sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum of money to anyone who would answer these three questions. So, students, there is one king, and that king was thinking that means that king has three questions, three things. The first question is, what is the right time to begin something? And he was very eagerly want to know that what is the correct time to begin anything or something. And the second question is, which people should he listens? Because always in kingdom and in palace there are some councils, and there are many peoples who always try to convince king. That's why his one question is like that: which people he should listen to? And the last questions, what is the most important things for him to do? These are the three questions. And the king sent his messengers throughout his kingdoms, and he already told them, those who bring this those who bring these answers, they will give a sum of money. A sum of money means a amount of money. Okay. Many wise men came to the king, but they all are answered his question differently. In reply to their first questions, some said the king must prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. Only in this way could he do everything at his proper time. Others said was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. So, many wise men, many wise persons, they came to the king, and their answers are different. They giving different opinions. So, in reply to the first questions, some said that it must be a timetables. If there is timetables, it means then follow it strictly. And this is the best way. Some people says like that, and another they said it could be a proper time for everything, but others said it is very impossible to decide in advance the right things for doing something. So the king should notice all that was going on and avoid foolish pleasures. Yet others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. This was because one man would find it impossible to decide correctly without help from others, the right time for every actions. So some of the people, they said that king needed a council of wise men so that they will help them, and it is very impossible for them to find out these three questions answered. So we all need each other helps for correct every actions. But then others said that there were some things which could be urgent. These things could not wait for the decisions for the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future, and only magicians can do that. The king, therefore, would have to go to the magicians. So, others said there were some things which could be urgent. So, this thing couldn't be wait for the decisions of the council. In order to decide the right time for something, it is necessary to look into the futures. And some says it can only do the magicians who can tell. So the king therefore have go to magicians. In their answers to the second questions, some said that people most necessary to the king were his counselors. Others said the priest. A few others choose the doctors, and yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. So the second questions, regarding the second question, some of the people said that most necessary to the king were his counselors, and others said the priest. So few others choose the doctors, but yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. To the third questions, some said science, others choose fighting, and yet others religious worship. As the answers to his questions were so different, the king was not satisfied and gave no reward. Instead, he decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a wood which he never left. He saw no one but simple people, and so the king put on ordinary clothes. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went on alone. So all the answers were very different. King was not satisfied from each and everyone, so he didn't give any rewards to anyone. So he decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who has widely known for his wisdoms. That hermit lived in a wood which he never left. Okay, he was a very simple people, so that king went to him, and king put an ordinary clothes, and before he reached there, before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguards. He went alone. As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. So king reached there, and he saw hermits in his hut, and he was just digging the ground in front of his hut. So he greeted the king and continued digging. The hermit was old and weak, and as he worked, he breathed heavily. So king reached there to hermit place, and then when hermit saw the king, he welcomed him, but still he continued digging the earth. So the hermit was very old and weak person, and he worked. He breathed heavily. The king went up to the hermit and said, "I have come to you wise hermit, to ask you to answer three questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I need most? And what affairs are the most important? So King asked the questions to the hermits and said, please help me and let me know how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? And who are the most I need, and what other affairs are the most important? The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. He went on digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work in your place. So king was keep asking, but hermit did not reply anything. He was keep working. So king said, you are tired. Give me your spade, I'll do. So he gave his spade to king. Thanks, said the hermit, giving the king his spade. Then he sat down on the ground. Then he thanks to the king and he sat down on the ground. When the king had dug two beds, he stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answer but stood up, stretching out his hand for the spade, and said, now you rest, let me work. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. So, when the king had dug two beds, two area, he already dug. Now he stopped and repeatedly asking his questions to him, but that old man didn't reply anything. So he stood just stretching his hands because he got little tired, and but that old man said, give me your spade, I'll do. But king did not give to him. 1 hour passed, then another. The sun went down behind the trees, and at last the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me no answer, tell me so, and I will return home. So time passed, 1 hour, 2 hours, like that. So sun also went down behind the trees. It became dark, and lastly the king stuck the spade on the ground and said, I have come to you, wise man, to know an answer to my questions. If you can't give any answers, please let me know, I'll go. Here comes someone running, said the hermit. Then, meanwhile, someone running, said the hermit. While they were talking, someone running, and the king turned around and saw a bearded man running towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. So, one bearded man came towards them, and his hands were pressing his stomachs, and he was full blood flowing. When he reached to the king, he already fell down to the ground. The king and the hermits removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. So king and hermits, that old man, took off his clothes, that wounds meant, and they found a large wound in his stomach. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. So bleeding was not stopping. The king redressed the wound until the last bleeding stopped. The man felt better and asked for something to drink. The king brought fresh water and gave to him. By this time the sun had set and the air was cool. The king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut and laid him on the bed. The man closed his eyes and lay quietly. The king, tired by his walking and his work had done, lay down on the floor and slept through the night. When he awoke, it was several minutes before he could remember. So that meant now felt better and he wants to drink something. So king gave fresh water to drink. At that time already the sun had set, and almost the air was cold also. And even the king was very tired because he was walking, so he was tired and he also slept. And then when he awoke, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in his weak voice when he saw the king was awake. "I do not know you and have something to give you for," said the king. So that bearded man in a weak voice said, "Forgive me," when he saw the king was awoke, and said, "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for." The king said, "You do not know me, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you because you put my brother to death and seized my property." So that bearded man said to the king, "You do not know me, but I know you. You are my enemy, and I came here to revenge you because you put my brother to death and seized my property. And I knew you had gone alone to see that hermit, and I made up my mind to kill you on your way. But the day passed and you did not return, so I left my hiding place and I came up your bodyguard, who recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from him, but I should have died if you had not dressed my wounds. I wish to kill you, and you have saved my life. Now, if I live, I will serve you as your most faithful servant and will order my sons to do the same. Forgive me." So that bearded man said, "I knew you had gone alone to see the hermits. That's why I make a plan to kill you. But day passed. I was returning to my place and I was trying to hiding, and I came up upon your body, who recognized me and they wounded me. I trying to escape from them. But I should have died if you were not dressed my wounds. I wish to kill you, but you saved my life. So I fully regret my life. I will serve you as your most faithful servant, and will order my sons to do the same. Forgive me. The king was very happy to have made peace with his enemy to enemy so easily, and won and have won him over as a friend. He did not only forgive him, but said he would send his servant and his own doctor to look after him. He promised to give back the man his property. So king was very happy that he made a peace between he and his enemy so easily. So he won him over as a friend. The king has not only forgiven him, but he said that he would send his servant also and his doctor to look after that wounded man. So he promised to give back the man his property. Leaving the wounded man, the king went out of the hut and looked around for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to get answers to his questions. The hermit was on his knees, sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. The king went up to the hermit and said, "For the last time, I beg you to answer my questions, wise man." So before leaving the wounded man, the king went out of the hut and looked around the hermits, because he really wants to know the answers of his questions. So he looked for him only before he leaving the place. He wants to wish him one more. The hermit was on his knees and sowing the seeds in the beds and digging the earth. "You have already been answered," said the hermit, still biting down to the ground and looking up at the king as he stood before him. "How have I been answered? What do you mean?" So he was just looking for that hermit, and hermit said to him, "You have already got your answer," said the hermit, and he was still biting down and he was working his work. He was working, and that king said, "What do you mean? How have I been answered?" "Do you not notice?" replied the hermit. "If you had not pitied my weaknesses yesterday and had not dug these beds for me, you would have gone away." Then replied the hermit, "If you not have pitied on my weaknesses yesterday and not helped me for the beds for me, you have you have gone away. Then that man would have attacked you, and you would have wished you had stayed with me. And if you would go, and that man would have attacked you, so it is your wish you had to stay with me. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds." Now, so he was telling the most important time was that when you were digging the beds. So I was the most important man, and do and to do good and to do me good was your most important business. Afterwards, when the man run to us. The most important time was when you were caring for him, because if you had not dressed his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was your most important business. So that hermit was telling everything to the king, that if you have not pity for his weaknesses, you would have gone. But you stayed with me. It is your wish, and you know the pity of and you know my pity of my weaknesses, everything. So the most important time was when you were digging the baths, and most important person is man. And do me good was your most important business. Afterwards, when the man run to us, that is the most important time when you caring for that bearded man. Because if you had not dressed that wounded man, then he would have died. So you have made peace with you. So the most important man, and what you did for him, your most important business. Remember that there is only one time that is important, and that time is now. It is the most important time because it is the only time we have any power to ache. Remember then, there is only one time that is important, and that time is now. It is the important time because it is the only time when we have any power to act. The most necessary person is the person you are with at a particular moment. For no one knows what will happen in the future and whether we will meet anyone else. The most important business is to do that person good, because we were sent into his world for that purpose alone. So that hermit gave him a good lesson and told him that everything, the most necessary person is the person when you were at that particular moment, and no one knows the futures what will happen or not. So the most important business is to do that person good, because we were sent into his world for that purpose only. So student, this is our lesson has completed. So students, these are the questions. I have given you only 4 questions. Whatever I explained in the videos, you just see again and again if there is any confuse, and you find out the answer of these questions. Thank you, student.